Hi, I'm Pete from Garblag Games. On this episode of Prepping the Campaign, we'll be talking about our first encounter. Welcome to the Red Hand of... Anyway, what I'm going to do is talk you through how I've set up the first encounter in Foundry and some of my thoughts around that. There's going to be the odd clip in there from the actual play because I'm editing this after we've done the first session. And then I'm going to go into plan versus actual. So how did what happened in the episode compare to what I hoped would? Anyway, here we go. What I'll do is I'll take us to that encounter in the book. Here's part 1. This is the adventure start, and this is a marauder attack with an effective level of 8. Now, although this is a 6 to 12 adventure, one of the things it says in here, I think it's over here in the designer's note, is like the characters are about to get to the town. So they're going to have this fight and then nothing else. They're going to get to the town and they can rest, which is my intention as well, right? So although the adventure is for level 6 to 12, although it says in the book somewhere 5 to 12, so, this would be a very hard encounter for them. It says we assume they're going to use all their stuff rather than we'd have a few fights over a day and they would need to portion out their spells, all their best stuff, all their best equipment, that kind of thing. In this situation, we assume because you're at least 5th level, you've got a wizard who can cast fireball or something, right? But I have adjusted it slightly. One of the reasons is that I don't like loads of tree canopy on the map when I can use it as a battle map, because it gets hard to sort of distinguish what's a tree and what's not. If you're at ground level, would it be completely covered, or wouldn't that canopy be up there? And just the tree trunks would provide cover. Is that the case? What does it look like on the ground? So I like to think about what it looks like on the ground level. And then if people can't see or they're up above, which is more of an edge case than the standard, right? I will then, tell the players the difference, right? So that's one of the reasons I've done it. Also, I just wanted to, update it, change it slightly. You can see on here it's got these hobgoblin regulars, down here, and then hellhounds, 2 hellhounds, and then what have we got? A doomhand cleric and a blade bearer, right? Now I've changed it slightly, and we'll go over to the Foundry and I'll talk through what I've changed and why. So what we can do is we can go to this little layer I've called On the Way to Town, and on here we have a battle map. So what I've done is I've created some zones. So there's a starting zone, and when I begin I'll tell everyone. So put yourselves in the blue box. You're making your way through the forest and you can see lots of tree trunks around you. This area through here, and this area here, these red areas, this is a raised rocky side to the road, either side, so there's like a little rise around it, and you can see the little grassy things over here. That indicates where you're going up.
Okay, like a contour
elevate
line.
A contour line in the grass. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this bit here is higher, and this bit here is higher.
Yeah. Well, I want to say it's a perfect place for an ambush.
But funny you should say that, Aldine. And I've placed some irregulars around the map. We've got 2 on this side, 3 on this side. I thought 1 per player would be fine. These guys are minions. They have 1 wound each and no vitality, right? They have an ability where if they are shot at and you miss, they get to shoot back at you for free, right? But they're supposed to be annoying, but they're easy to kill. We then have, and one thing I tend to do in Foundry is with all the creatures that I'm going to use in the game, I will have a copy to one side that is hidden from players, right? Because one of the worst, what I like to do is reveal monsters as they come out of a location, rather than when I first drop it onto the map and have to then hide it. If you drag a creature onto the map, then it just appears, right, and everyone can see it. Whereas this way, they're cloaked, and although our viewers can see it, which is also great because they know what's going to happen before the players do. Yeah, like in this situation, my players won't be able to see these two irregulars over here, but the viewers will, which is good fun. So then if I want to, what I can do is I can just go, oh yeah, I want an egg hound, right, let's copy that and let's whack an egg hound there, and they can't see it. It's got all the same stats, it's got all the right information, so if I click on it I can see its capabilities here, and what you can see is I've set up some stats for these creatures in here with certain skills and abilities. The egg hounds are very physical, and they have a slight bit of occult, and they have an ability where they can breathe fire. They're egg hounds, igneous. They are basically large attack dogs that are infused with Zadumir power from Throx, who is the god of chaos and pain, who lives on the Zadumir layer of the World Mountain, which is basically hell. Right, it runs up to Oddball.
Yep.
And let me just check my rules on this for a minute.
Shield is raised.
So that was one action. It then uses two actions, and it opens its mouth, and a huge gout of flame comes out.
Okay.
Like that. It kind of roars. A 3x3 area adjacent to the egg hound is on fire, and everyone within it takes a strength 6 hit versus evasion. So I have those copies ready at the side, and you can see I've slightly changed each of the elements, each of the creatures that were on the encounter. So we had a Doom Cleric, and I've changed it to a Doombringer. So, Cleric is quite a D&D class specific type thing. I just wanted to have a slightly different flavour for it. And we got the Beast Blade. I'm not using the light sources and the visual stuff. You could, if you wanted to, draw a little, get your walls and draw walls that block line of sight, which is really cool. I think it's much better if you don't have an audience, and it adds a load on the computer and the players as well when they join Foundry. So I try to keep it. Foundry's quite hungry, and I try to keep it low impact. Also I can obscure monsters, so when they hide behind something, I make them appear and disappear, and then they're like, oh, he's gone behind the thing, and I'll say he's run behind the tree and you can't see him now, and then click on the hide and he'll go away. And also I like it's slightly more of the tabletop experience that players will have had, where you put out a map and you move people around. You only bring things on when they're within visibility range. I like that kind of feeling. We've done all different kinds, and it's really cool. But I think this is a bit closer to the tabletop experience. So I've got the capability here to then bring in extra creatures if I want to, without the players knowing that I've added them, or I can delete them and they won't know because they're all hidden. So that's good. That's handy. And there's a little bit of balancing on the fly, which I will be doing, which every GM does anyway, right? But because Heroic Deeds is in infancy and I haven't built a load of monsters yet to see how they work, part of it will be calibrating for that. But I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a great opportunity, and it'd be interesting to talk about it in episodes later as well. So I think that'd be pretty cool. Okay, so I've made the map and the creatures for Encounter 1. So we're going to begin with the lead-in, the intro. We're going to talk a bit, going to get them all to talk about their characters on the stream. I'm going to say, right, and as you're making your way along this area, make a observe roll to probably to his fix. Aldun's character is the Dark Delver. It's like a rogue, explorer, adventurer. Indiana Jones meets Batman. There'll be a roll, and if they spot them, then they won't be surprised, and if they don't spot them, then they will be, and that'll change what happens at the beginning of the battle. But we'll have this battle. Once they're done, they find some treasure, but it's clear that it's from merchants and travelers. So it's do they take it? Do they go to the village, give it to the locals? That's kind of a first moral quandary. They don't personally have any kind of money, or they're obviously out on a ambush, so they're not carrying all their loose change around with them. But as you go over to approach the farmhouse building,
is there anything in that farmhouse?
You can see that they've got like a little stash. This looks like they've raided a merchant caravan or something, and they've grabbed a bunch of loot and they've stashed it here. And his fix, you kind of dexterously count up 120 silver pieces. A lot of copper, a lot of silver, but 120 silver pieces. So you guys gather all these things together and start to make your way into Doric's Ferry. So we had a really good first session. It's a fairly standard encounter. There's not a lot of complexity to it, but the ambush terrain with the path through the middle really forces a choice, and it meant that our party kind of split up, and that was interesting because the tank kind of went far ahead and to one side away from everybody else, and there was a bit of he was taking the minions out, but the others were kind of working together to try and push further onto the map, which was a really cool part of it. The minions were dealt with quickly, which was the point. I don't think anyone actually missed any of them, so I didn't get to use any of their cool reactions, but hey, that's by the by. The elite creatures provided the real test of the encounter, with the Doombringer and the Beastblade being worthy opponents. And actually, Rob's Room Wielder had to turn one of them against the other with some magic to help ease things along. So they came up with good solutions. They got into it, and they got the spoils of the situation. They kept the money for themselves. You'll see that in the next episode when I talk about the starting settlement and the town and setting that up. So that was really cool. I did the enemies in 2 waves, as the game suggested. The book actually suggests 3 waves, but the third wave, I thought we only had 2 hours for the session. It would have taken too long. So in the end, 2 waves was good. I had to change it a little bit because we were down 1 player. Unfortunately, Lewis couldn't make the first session, but he did for the second and the third. So I had to adjust from 5 players to 4, but that was okay. My kind of setup on the side of Foundry with my little ghosted tokens allowed me to sort of bring them in as I needed to the right level to sort of adjust to how the fight was going. So that worked really well. Everything was in Foundry, and that was all good. I mean, if you want to go and check out the actual play, there's a link, might appear on your screen. It might be in all the details below. But the actual play was a lot of fun. The guys really enjoyed their first combat encounter of this campaign. They used up their resources. They felt that their characters were challenged, but they weren't overrun, so they were able to deal with it. There was a sense of threat, but never a sense of an impending TPK or anything like that. So that was good. So I think really in summary, preparation worked well. I had to adjust on the fly, but I normally do that, as I said earlier on, in my sessions. And it provided a challenge, but not too strong. It gave them that little bit of confidence and the first steps of them working together as a team, which was really good. The Doom Cleric, or the Doombringer, as I've changed it, is really the key to making this otherwise standard encounter a bit more interesting. You've got a lot of warriors, and if you're playing this straight as it is with D&D 3rd edition, you know, you've got your soldiers, you've got not a lot of complexity there, because they don't really have any special attacks or extra things. So the cleric there with its spells will be the excitement. But the Beast Blade, I gave an ability with a headbutt, which spiced things up a bit. So that's one of the things I'm really excited about with Heroic Deeds, where the creatures are much more interesting than some of the kind of straight up creatures of Dungeons and Dragons, where they kind of hit you or do more than one hit on you. So it was a good encounter for our first Heroic Deeds combat. But I think if you're running a 5th or 6th level party who have done previous adventures, this might be a little bit dry for them. You know, in Dungeons and Dragons, they will have done quite a few adventures, I assume, to get to 5th or 6th level. So by the time they get here, this might feel a little bland. So you might want to spice it up a little bit more. But the point of this encounter really is to show the players that the area is troubled by raiders. So it's not supposed to be too difficult or too complicated. So that's fine. There is the Hellhound with its fire, which is useful, and we had the Ig Hound use its fire in the game, which was great, as you saw earlier on. But yeah, it's the Doom Cleric here is really where the interesting juice comes from this encounter. Excellent. Right, well, that was our first session and our first encounter. At the end of the session, they actually made their way to the town. We won't go into that right now. I'm going to save that for our next session. So next time, we're going to talk about the starting town of Doric's Ferry and what they got up to when they got there, how I set it up with the factions and information so that was ready to hand, what they got up to, and what downtime activities they did. Okay, so that'll be our next session. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that video. Hopefully that was useful and interesting. If you want to check out our actual plays, I've got links below to the main Garblad Games channel. And also, if you're interested about Heroic Deeds, I've got a link to the Discord below and to the free quick start, the 50-page rules that you can get your hands on now completely free to try the game out. And I will be going to Kickstarter in February. It's December at time of recording. You may be watching this in the future and it's happened and it's already out. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Hopefully that was useful, and we'll see you soon